The basic instruction manual for playing the game of life. So, what am I talking about? Well, in the game of life, I believe there are 7 distinct primary stats that everyone, main characters and NPCs alike, should strive to progress in. If you progress in each of these stats, the game will become significantly easier and more enjoyable, especially in the mid to late game. So what are the primary stats in the game of life? Stat number 1, we have career. This stat provides purpose, a stable source of income, as well as a higher propensity to increase the amount of money coming in. Each of these stats will be elaborated on later in this instruction guide. So stat number 2, we have money. This stat provides you a medium of exchange. Without this, you will not be able to replenish your inventory or acquire assets. This is arguably the most important stat, and all other stats relate to this in one way or another. Stat number 3, we have the defense stat. This stat can also be labeled as education or experience, and this stat refers to your ability to fend off other competitors for your job or potential job. This stat encompasses the career stat, but it can also be applied to low-skilled part-time jobs and other various short courses and skills. Think of this stat as your resume. The more educated and skilled, the better. Stat number 4, aesthetics. This stat refers to not only your appearance, but your health. Think of this as primarily a gym stat, such as how strong you are and how much muscle you've gained / fat you've lost. But it can also include facial work such as Botox, or even laser hair removal, dental work, newing, etc. Looking good makes you feel good, which feeds into the 7th stat, but you can also magnify stat number 2 and stat number 6 if your aesthetic stat is maximized. That will make sense later on. Stat number 5, investor. Now this stat is primarily concerned with the financial markets, but it also includes real estate. This stat is criminally underrated. Many NPCs do not have much of a grasp of this stat, and its importance will be elaborated on later. But suffice to say, if you're out here trying to get on the whole self-improvement thing, I guarantee you won't see any of them talking about this stat, which is quite disappointing, so that's what I'm here for. Stat number 6, online brand. This stat, simply put, refers to the amount of people who are aware of your existence. Over the past 2 years, a lot of people have caught on to the importance of this stat, especially for maximizing stat number 2, but the larger your audience, the larger your income potential. And finally, we have stat number 7, mental health, the stat to magnify all stats. If you get this stat sorted, every other stat becomes significantly easier. And obviously, this stat refers to your mental state. So what is this instruction manual going to go over? For each of the 7 stats, I, your trusted tutorial guide, will provide a very baseline level of information to help you get the bare basics. Note that there is much more to be learned in each of these 7 stats, but this manual is just a base level guide. Advanced manuals will come out once updates to the server are complete. AKA, I have a bit more time in my life and I have some more of my shit sorted. So stat number 1, career. Pick a career with solid job growth, because there's no point making an investment in yourself that won't pay dividends. Check government websites, governments are the server mods, for information on which sectors are anticipated to grow. You can also check job search websites for what jobs / careers are most needed, but the government database is more useful since it's forward-looking. The job websites will only show you the jobs that are in demand now. Potentially, those jobs won't be around in 5 years. Gain more skills than everyone else, as it makes you the next best candidate in the job market. When you go in for job interviews, you'll get the job if you're the best option. So, you can make yourself the best option, or I guess you can wait for all the better competition to become employed, meaning you're now by default the best option on the market. But this is a flawed approach because eventually there'll be someone new who's going to be outworking you and they will become the next best candidate on the market. So upskill yourself so that way you are the best option. So in terms of career, there are usually 2 groups you can pick from, and these are blue collar and white collar. So white collar requires less initial investment, time and money, but less flexibility and potential wear and tear on your body. Blue collar, think of blue collar as manual labor jobs. White collar jobs require higher upfront initial investment because usually you have to go and do a uni/college degree, which means not only do you have to get into debt or fork out a lot of money to pay for this, but that's potentially a lot of time you could be spent working. Now, with that said, in blue collar jobs, you don't really get paid much for being an apprentice anyway. And while you're studying at university, you can obviously work a part-time job as most people do, but this is just something to keep in mind regardless. You won't be getting paid for studying in a white collar job unless you've got a scholarship, but in a blue collar job, you are getting paid for your work as you learn the skills, albeit at a much lower wage. The advantages of white collar workers include more flexibility, as you can't really work from home as a blue collar worker. Plumbing or electrical services looked at, you can't really do that from home. Whereas most white collar jobs have the capability of being done from home. And also, besides bad posture and lower non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which feeds into stat 4, there's a lot less wear and tear on your body. I'll do an advanced guide on the differences, the pros and cons between both of these career paths at a later date. Stat 2, we have money. Now ideally, make more money earlier on. It's worth making the sacrifice of short-term pleasure/fun due to the time value of money. $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow, as we are in a server that uses fiat currency. Stat 6 elaborates on this. And fiat currency is slowly devalued over time, so make more money now because it's worth more now. Home prepared meals are a lot cheaper than takeout, and it also emphasizes stat number 4 as well. Supermarket brand items are usually cheaper and the quality isn't much different. However, stat number 4 can conflict with this statement. For example, caged eggs are usually more expensive than free-range eggs, but caged eggs quality is so much worse than free-range eggs because obviously caged chickens are really unhealthy and they're not as healthy as free-range chickens, so naturally the byproduct of the healthier chickens will be healthier. But stat 4 will elaborate on this. Check around for high interest savings accounts. If I didn't do this, my current bank account would only be paying me 1.6% interest, because that's a bank I've had since I was a kid, and for some reason their interest rates are garbage. I found a new bank that's paying me 4.05% interest, so as you can see, that makes a huge difference, and all I had to do was just look around. And lastly for this, cut subscriptions, even if you have to get a new credit card. What I mean by this is I find some subscriptions are a pain to cancel, so it's honestly easier for me to just report my card as lost and to get a new one. Stat number 3, defense. Pick a career in high demand. This can include nursing, teaching, engineering, accounting, truck driving, IT, and many more. This is because if you somehow lose your current job in your role, well, no matter, there's plenty of demand for your skill set, so you'll have no problem finding another job. This kind of ties into stat number 1, career, but it warrants emphasizing. Now, as for a second job, pick a secondary job in fast food, in a supermarket, or in warehouses. These workplaces offer pretty good flexible working arrangements, in terms of the hours at least, so they can fit well around your first job. The more skills/education you have, the harder you are to replace in your field. So upskill yourself to increase this defense stat. Now, every industry is competitive, so a lot of people are doing this argument does not hold up. I've seen this argument before, oh, why should I do that industry? There's a lot of competition in it. There's a lot of competition in every industry. The important part is the job growth and the job availability. Stat number 4, aesthetics. So, I used to be a personal trainer and I've achieved my Cert 4 in fitness. So I know there's a lot more to this than just what you're about to see. But remember, this is just a basic guide. I've done a somewhat advanced version of this already, But for the sake of this instruction manual, I'm going to keep it brief. So learn the anatomical function of each muscle, train that movement pattern under resistance. That's how you build muscle. For example, the function of your pec is to bring your elbow across your body, so find movements in the gym that do this. Think of any chest exercise, and you'll find that your elbow tends to come across your body when you perform that exercise. One of the functions of your glutes is to extend your hips. The function of your elbow is to extend and flex your arm, which will use your bicep and tricep muscles. So just find the anatomical function of each of these muscles and train them with resistance, and that's how you'll build them. Train about 10 to 20 sets per week within the 6 to 15 rep range. I know this is broad, but for compound movements that involve multiple joints, go on the lower rep side. And for single joint movements that only really use one muscle group, you can go higher. I'd recommend going higher in rep range for these. And don't go 20 sets per week for every single muscle group. Go 20, closer to 20 with some, and go closer to 10 with others, and then switch them around as your physique goals change. But as I said, there's a bit more to this than that. As long as you're in these sort of guidelines, you'll be pretty good. I remember listening to a podcast once between Mike Israetel and Eric Helms, and they were arguing about minimum effective volume and maximum recoverable volume, and they were just getting way too nuanced. Like, we're talking about the difference between 2 and 3 sets a week. That's not really going to make a difference at all. As in, we're talking like, what about 22 sets a week or 25 sets a week? That doesn't matter. Train muscle groups twice a week. The literature is pretty clear on this. The bro split does work, but ideally just train each muscle group around twice a week. Any more frequently doesn't tend to really bode better results from what I've seen. But again, a basic guideline, just 2 times a week, that's fine. Ensure you warm up your rotator cuff muscle before every upper workout, at least, ideally for a lower workout too, and do the McGill Big 3 for your lower back. Your shoulder is a free moving joint, so it's a lot more prone to injuries, and most people tend to have issues with their lower back later on in life, so take preventative measures now. Do the McGill Big 3. Consume 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Again, there's arguments for going a bit lower or a bit higher, but we'll keep it simple. Supplements are not very necessary at all. There was a David Lade video the other day I saw where the price of creatine was just absolutely insane. Creatine's a well-researched supplement, but it basically serves the same function as salt, so just have some salt, providing you're not one of those people with higher blood pressure. So most of that was training, but as for diet, the next slide's going to have essentially one of the best diets out there, because I've seen so many diets throughout my years and years of being on fitness YouTube, and none of them properly go through the micronutrients the way mine does. So if you follow this diet, you will get the recommended intake of every single vitamin and mineral, and trust me, you'll feel a lot better, you'll be a lot healthier, and you'll be way more productive, because your body will be functioning at its best because you're giving your body what it needs. Give your body what it needs to fuel itself, and your body will give you what you need. Now, obviously the calories may not be suited to you, but do your own adjustments. If you need further info, I've already made a big video on this. Stat number 5, investor. So this is a very criminally underrated stat. I barely see anyone outside of finance YouTube talking about this. I'm not sure if it's because people find it boring, or it's because they don't feel they're smart enough to understand this, but this is an extremely important stat. Every population sector uses fiat currency, which is issued by the government. This is a medium of exchange, meaning we swap this for certain products and services that we deem valuable enough to a point that we are willing to part way with our money and deplete our money inventory. So that feeds into what I was mentioning for stat 2, the money stat. Make money now, because it's going to get devalued later on. Furthermore, this investor stat can help you outpace the rate that your money is being devalued. Not in this current economic climate, but in a few years, Having this stat to a high enough level will allow you to outpace the rate at which your money is being devalued. The United States dollar is the global reserve currency, meaning most international trade is done in US dollars, meaning other countries need to buy US dollars in order to buy other stuff from other countries. The Federal Reserve is the central bank of the United States, and they're currently raising interest rates at the moment, as are most other central banks, but because the United States dollar is the reserve currency, a good foreign exchange trade is to bet on the United States dollar going up against the other currencies. You can do this via buying the DXY, or just do a straight up foreign exchange trade with US dollars going against the yen, the euro, the Great British Pound, the Australian dollar, but you'll have to do a bit more research because who knows if that's the case by the time you're watching this video. The macro environment may have changed by then. Now you can also touch New Zealand dollars and Canadian dollars on the foreign exchange market, but I'm not too well versed in these, so I'm not going to comment on them. Another good trading opportunity in this current economic climate is to short stocks or make put options on stocks that have gone up a lot. Potentially short into earnings reports, as they'll usually be bad and have bad guidance. Today, at the time of recording this video, Netflix reported its earnings after hours and they were actually really good. I currently have a short position on them, so I'm going to have to close this ASAP before I start losing a lot of money. However, I don't anticipate this being the case for many other companies. Now, I'm from Australia, and I imagine some of my viewers are too. Just stay away from the Aussie share market. The New York Stock Exchange is where it's at. This is because there's just way more money in the New York Stock Exchange. Plus, there's a lot more information available relating to these stocks. So that's why I go for New York stocks instead of Australian stocks. In terms of what platform to use, I use eToro, and I have a Moomoo account as well because Moomoo is available here in Australia now. I don't think they used to be. But there's plenty of Australian exclusive trading platforms, but their fees are just way higher than what Moomoo or eToro offer. And if you're outside of Australia, you have access to things like Public and Robinhood, so you'll be right. Just do your own research on which trading platform you think will be better for you and go with that. Now, a basic option for this investor stat is to just dollar cost average into the stock market. And dollar cost averaging is just putting $20 in each week, for example, into a stock you really like, or a broad ETF that tracks the top stocks in each country/region, such as the S&P 500. And eventually you should have made a more significant return on your money. Now, the stock market hasn't bottomed yet, despite what a lot of people are saying on the internet. So if you start dollar cost averaging now, it's going to be worth less in the future. But if you want to keep it simple, then by all means start dollar cost averaging now. But if you want to get more advanced, bet on the US dollar going up against other currencies and short certain stocks that have rallied too much. Once the market starts to turn around, you can just bet on stocks going up and then sell them once they've gone up a fair bit, which is the opposite of what I'm doing now. I'm shorting stocks, basically gambling the price is going to go down, and once I've made a bit of a return, I sell out and I take my profits. Now, in terms of more information on this, follow my Twitter/Instagram for tidbits as to what I'm doing. Often I'll post a trade I'm about to do or some trade ideas, and after a while you'll get a gist of my psyche. In terms of YouTube channels, obviously I can recommend mine, but I don't get videos anywhere near as frequently as necessary to become good at finance and the stock market game. But go and watch The Maverick of Wall Street and Stocked Up for daily general info. I watch plenty of other channels as well, but these two will help you get a feel for what's going on in the current market. I watch these guys every day, so I'm always sort of up to date with what's going on in the market because they provide basically daily updates as to what's going on. And like I said, I watch plenty of other channels too, but we'll keep it basic, just watch these two. Stat number 6, the online brand. So for an online brand, I can't really talk much since I'm not a big superstar myself, but I have seen a lot of other people talk about how they grew themselves. So the general takeaways are just to be yourself, Like, don't try to be a bootleg version of someone else. Just be yourself, because everyone else is already taken. And make sure it's a passion project too. I've heard of many people that have tried to make this into a business and they've flunked because they were too fixated on the money focus and they never got to that point because they didn't enjoy the journey. I actually like making this stuff, and I'll make sure I only work on this if it doesn't hinder my other areas of my life. For example, during exams, as my regular viewers would know, I don't actually upload anything because I'm focused on my studies, and I don't skip gym sessions or anything to make an extra video within a given time frame. So it's basically me being productive with my time whenever I'm not doing anything related to my career or the gym. Now, one tidbit I haven't seen much that I've kind of figured out is make it relevant to your current career or business or whatever. For example, if you're an electrician, maybe post little tidbits that help people with their electrical issues in their house, because what it does is it reinforces your own knowledge, as well as keeping you accountable. So worst case scenario, if the brand doesn't go anywhere, at the very least you've got a portfolio that showcases your knowledge on a particular subject. Now in this sense, I'm only talking about like educational type of channels. In terms of entertainment and stuff, there's plenty of other better resources out there. Now don't shill shit. I hate when YouTubers take sponsors from products I know for a fact they don't use or don't recommend or don't care about. Or worse, if it's just really not relevant to what their channel's about. You have sponsors like NordVPN and Raycon that can really apply to any channel, but then you've got things like Raid Shadow Legends that obviously they're only gamer related channels. Like if you saw a finance guy promoting that, I'd be extremely confused. So one good example of this is a while ago I saw Andre Jick and Graham Stephan promote this health thing. What do you guys know about health? Like there's no way that they'd know if this was a legitimate good product or not. Now I actually went and searched this nutritional content and it wasn't bad, but they're a finance YouTuber promoting a health stuff. I'd expect to see that on a fitness channel, not a finance channel. So that just goes to show that they only really care about the money, because why would you take that sponsorship otherwise? Plus, eventually, shilling just a bunch of random stuff is going to negatively impact your brand image, and that is extremely important. So don't shill shit. Now, this isn't necessarily a tidbit or anything, it's just more so a thought I had. If people can actually see your face and see you talking to the camera and whatnot, I feel it comes across as them being more trustworthy, especially if they're like a personality channel, which would come under entertainment, not really education. However, if you keep your identity hidden the way I do, it allows you to be more authentic. What I mean by this is, I don't have to watch what I say, because I know whatever I say isn't going to negatively or positively impact my actual life. For example, if I piss off all the social justice warriors, how are they going to call and cry to my employer asking them to fire me if I have no trace of who I actually am? If I had told you where I'd worked and I had my face and I had my name on here and everything, if I say something offensive, then they'll know who my employer is, and knowing how society works these days, I'd lose my job. But I'm under no threat of that, so I can say whatever I want and I can be myself, because if everyone gets angry, I can just hide the brands and hide the channel and hide the social media stuff and get on with my daily life as if nothing happened. Now, stat number 7, mental health. So this is a tricky one to talk about because obviously there's no one-size-fits-all way to help everyone with this, but I'll just give some tidbits I have. So in terms of your diet, you'll find that most people actually feel down because they aren't consuming all the essential vitamins and minerals. As you saw in stat 4, follow that diet for a month and see how much better you feel once you've given your body all the vitamins and minerals that it actually needs. I guarantee you're currently missing out on at least a few of them, if not half of them. Or Again, if not, you're missing out on the right quantity of them. Sleep. Now everyone knows this, but are you doing it? Are you doing all you can to ensure a good quality sleep? 2 tidbits I've got are CBD gummies and sleeping to a circadian rhythm. If you do split shifts or night shifts or whatever, this kind of gets out of whack, but work with what you can. But if you're in the whole 9 to 5 thing like I am, sleep to a circadian rhythm. Exercise as well. Everyone feels good after a workout because of endorphins and just a general sense of accomplishment. So perhaps exercise a bit more regularly if you're feeling a bit down. Meditate if necessary. I know this helps a lot of people, but I don't feel it's necessary at all. The time I use to clear my thoughts is the drive to work, pretty much. But yeah, I just don't find sitting there listening to mellow music and just clearing your mind to be a good utilization of my time personally. To each their own, and as I said, I know it helps a lot of people, but the half hour I would spend meditating could be best used for checking the foreign exchange market for a good trade, or checking more investment stuff, or working on my online brand a bit more, or maybe spending a bit longer at the gym. Like for me, there's other better uses of my time than meditating. But if you need it, then by all means do it. Now, here's another interesting one, nostalgic tunes. So I'm sure you've seen, well, if you're a regular viewer of mine, you know that a lot of my music in the backgrounds of my videos are from video games I played as a kid. And even my study tunes for my CPA and my degree and all that stuff, my study tunes are the soundtracks of these video games. And they really just take me back to a simpler time. So try this one out. Any video games you played as a kid, just listen to the soundtracks of them and just see how it makes you feel. Look at where you once were. You're more than likely improved a lot more than you realize. Some days I'm a bit annoyed because I'm not where I am, or I'm not progressing as fast as I had hoped. Example, gym, I thought I'd be stronger by now, or I thought I would have lost a bit more weight in this cut by now. I thought I'd be further in my studies. I thought I'd have more money. I thought my online brands would have more traction by now. I thought I would have understood that bond market in the stock market thing by now. But I am in a much better position than I was a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago. So sometimes you just got to take a step back and look how far you've come. Another way to look at this is look at how many other people have it worse than you. It seems a bit hatery, but I've gone to the Philippines to visit my cousins before, and their living conditions are absolutely horrid. I have like an extremely small bedroom, but it's a lot better than what they have access to. So things like that make you a little bit more grateful for what you've got. So that was a basic instruction manual for playing the game of life. Again, as I mentioned, there's a lot more to all of these stats than what I've just mentioned, but I've tried to keep this short. If I elaborated, this would be another massive long video. And if you caught one of my last videos, you'll see that I'm done with the extremely long videos, because I know that that's just simply not what the audience wants. And that's what's best for my online brand. And it's also better for my time because it's less video I actually need to edit. I've elaborated a little bit on the career stat, the aesthetic stat, and investor stat in videos past, but more than likely I'll do updated versions of those that are a lot shorter, more concise, and better production quality, even though my production quality is obviously not the best, but I'll get there. But at the very least, this video / instruction guide can give you a nice little springboard to work off for increasing all 7 of these stats yourself. Good luck in your version of this game of life. Prepare yourself for the boss battles, upgrade all of your stats, become a well-rounded main character, and potentially we can all become overpowered. That is all.